Hi, and welcome back to the Rich Fritzky Show. I've been at this for quite some time, and I was struck this week by the realization that beyond a passing reference or notation, I've devoted nary a word to my mom, Rose Cassidy Fritzky, our Rosie. So I'm going to share a rambling, random, right off the top of my head, stream of consciousness tribute to one of the good Lord's gentlest and sweetest of creatures. She passed so very quickly, some 25 years ago, of a lung cancer that had only been diagnosed 6 weeks before. She never smoked a damn cigarette in her life, and lung cancer just didn't seem fair. Deep was her love, and how she worried and wore both her worrying and her mourning on her sleeve. Might seem strange to begin with this, and yet, this more than anything else defined her, just who she was. As to the worrying or mourning, there were three "it never got worse for Rosies" that take center stage in memory. One, when Frank was off in Vietnam and Bob then got drafted immediately upon Frank's return, coupled with the loss and death of her cousin Dave. Frank and Bob were the soldiers, but it was Rosie who was always embattled. No matter what anyone else might say, there was no talking her down, no word, nor prayer, nor notion that would remove her from the field with them. Suffice it to say, she loved fiercely. The second, one of 7 in May of '67, she lost one of her younger brothers, Skip, Father Francis Cassidy, whom she was so tight with. Now Skip was a live life to the lees type. He loved Broadway and music and laughter and the Mass that he always felt so privileged to say. He was the type who broke the rules to bring his Christ even closer to the people, and as such was always in trouble with his bishop. A constant fixture in her home, he said he came just for the pandemonium. But typically he'd bring in his stereo to share the latest shows with Mom, a West Side Story, a Carousel, or just to introduce her to a young woman named Barbara, whose voice, he said, made him go limp. I can even recall his literally clearing the buffet in the dining room to demonstrate a dance step for Mom. Happy, exuberant, and so in love with life. His loss was truly a dagger in her heart. She mourned too hard, too long, as if she too were lost, and I can even recall my dad talking to her about its having consumed her, about we, her children, who needed her back in the game with us. Get back in the game she did. Fierce love inevitably trumps even punishing loss. Then in 1989, in rapid succession, she lost her sister Mary, her brother Joe, and finally her baby brother Jack, or Father John. Suddenly, she was the only one of the 7 who remained, and it so unsettled her. And then just 1 year later, she lost her Frank, our dad. Blow after blow after blow, and then there it was, the knockout punch. So very close to all, to her handsome, strapping older brother Joe, the straight arrow who had married one of her best friends, Dot, and with whom she stirred the Manhattans. Jack, with whom she and Dad long shared the sweet cabin at our beloved Crater Lake. As to Mary, I bet no one out there, beyond my own siblings, know that she and Aunt Mary spoke with each other virtually every night of their lives, and always late, as both were night owls. Even when Mary was off in Three Rivers, Beaupre, lords of the Holy Land. Now there were, of course, international glitches that did not allow, as Mary was, with her Our Lady of Fatima First Saturday Club, the World Traveler. But I can recall a particular Christmas Eve when the call absolutely had to be for my mom, and Hackensack to Bethlehem it was. I can also recall when her phone was down for weeks on end in the dead of winter, and truly once Dad fell asleep, Mom would grab her coat and gloves and head off into the night, walking the long 2 to 3 blocks to Packard's as midnight beckoned, just to get to a payphone. True and crazy, and yet such was their belonging, their dedication to each other. As to Dad, well, that's a book for another day. She went through life forever worrying about everybody else in her life. And I believe that she taught her children, us, just how to live and to love, taught us how to give ourselves away. I can still see myself in that old tube with her, floating on Crater Lake at maybe 1.5 years old. Safe and secure in her arms where we, the 7 of us, all spiritually remain. I can see her on a Christmas Eve when I, not wanting to display my fear of Marley's chains clanking approach, acted as if I was but the noble son off to see if Mom, who was slaving away in the kitchen, needed any help. Only to have her send me right down into the darkness of our foreboding cellar with its damp pull-chain lights to retrieve a couple of cans of something. Right down where old Marley, who I was running away from, lived and lurked. Oh, did I walk into that one, for surely old Jacob was going to have his way with me. The lesson, never volunteer. Then, too, I watched her on another Christmas and noticed something more. Every burner on the stove was a-going it, and the turkey was in the oven, and the kitchen table seemed a mess. And there she was, rushing from the kitchen into the dining room to wrap Christmas gifts for her brothers, Jack and Skip. I saw her in a whole new light that moment, as one who was always on the go for all of us, ever in motion. Now this one takes a quick story to relate it to Mom, but it's one of my favorites. Unshaken by my childish fears of Jacob Marley, and yes, the spirit of Christmas future, admittedly as well. I was, by 8th grade, as well-versed in A Christmas Carol as was any scholar. So I asked Sister Rose that if I took care of everything, could our class put on a Christmas Carol play for the school at Christmas? Given the go-ahead, I had no script, so I edited it into a play along with stage notes. I then casted it, involving every single student, even got a costume team together. I, Top Gun that I was, without a shred of know-how, was to be the director. A selfish one at that, and that I also cast myself in the lead as Ebenezer Scrooge. But hey, seriously, who else could possibly learn all those lines that I already knew? So it was for the greater good. Everybody got into it, and as to class bonding, it truly was special. Everybody seemed to feel as if we really were all that. Now, it wasn't until 20-odd years or so later, when that memory comes up at a family gathering, and Mom proceeds to tell a story about it. Smilingly, she relates getting a call the night before that play from Sister Juliana, who told her, "Rose, I know you probably work at the bakery tomorrow, but you cannot miss Richie's show." So Mom got there. I had never, ever heard this before then. And there she was, already laughing so that she had to take a deep breath and pause just to continue. Then, emphasizing every word she says, I never laughed harder at anything else in my entire life. A comedy it was not, and so I, director, suddenly star no more. It was the death of my legendary standing among the great Scrooges, Alistair Sim, Scrooge McDuck, Mr. Magoo, and others. Finally, she regains a measure of control, but only to pile on more and add, and that's exactly what Sister Juliana told me. "Rosie," she said, "I never laughed louder in my life than I did this afternoon." That was our rehearsal. Well, at least we entertained. I see Mom all right in another seasoned altar boy that I was, having only just discovered that small holes had busted through the soles of my shoes on Holy Thursday morning, when I was to be on the altar that night, often kneeling, with neither money to buy new nor time to do so. Mom locates this strong brown tape, and she applies it, secures it, tapers it in such a way that it looks perfect. We road tested it, stressed it. Still, we looked good to go. New shoes would come as soon as life allowed. But as for then, the God of the resurrection had given us tape. How pretty Mom was. How sweet her smile. Her picture under the trellis at the lake. With us on the bench at Darlington. With Dot and Minnie and all those other pretty Jersey City gals. With Dad on their wedding day. And oh, how special and beautiful the one with Dad, the stud that he was, in the middle of a couch with his arms wrapped tightly around the shoulders of both Mom and Dot. I have often wondered just what Dad lived during those 3 years of his in Europe during World War II as a frontline medic. I have never been able to completely wrap my arms around it all. From Monte Cassino to Anzio to Bastogne, the concentration camps, and all the rest. But now I stop, as I never have before, to consider Mom and her work as a Rosie the Riveter during the war, her bringing Joni into the world without her husband, the fear she must have had, the loneliness, the constant worry, what had to be occasional desperation. Good Lord. Then, too, she, like that entire greatest generation, were all children of the Depression, children of want and never enough. We know we do, for that's why Mom's mom, our Nana, who cared for us at Crater Lake when our parents were home, always hid the goodies from us. The cakes and the cookies left for us always went under her bed in the inner sanctum to be doled out in the shortest of snippets. Yes, she forever remained a mother of the Depression. I remember the If It's Wednesdays and Must Be Lido's dinners with Mom and Dad, Joe and Dot, Morris and Geneva, that I crashed from time to time. The joy of simply being together, the happiness, the expectation, the belonging. I picture Mom and Dot in some bizarre clown-like costumes, walking down one of the dirt roads at the lake. Likely, I imagine, for the Labor Day costume party. At least I hope so. Oh, I picture Mom in so many places, singing with Dad, even in that old Chevy of his. And I see them both in the company of so many on a Friday night in the kitchen at Nan's Glacamora. And there she is with my children on the swings in our backyard and cutting flowers in her own. And worrying so about the 24 cases of empty beer bottles and cans, the refuse of the single most well-attended party in the history of 138 Poplar Avenue in Hackensack, the one for Bobby, who was off to the bleak demilitarized zone of Korea. Worried about what the beer cases would look like, she was. As for me, I have been far more worried about the floors giving way that night, as every room was packed to the gills. There were more than 65 in my attic alone. Oh, what a family. I can see my light-up-to-life 2-year-old Rosie sitting on Mom's lap, and Rosie suddenly, elatedly looking back at her, and in her sweet little voice saying, "Hey, Mom, a rose upon a rose." I loved that she never failed to leave the stash of Ritz crackers and cookies in the lower cupboard, where my kids would be bound to find them whenever we visited. And most especially, I loved her for loving Maggie and treating her as the gift from God that she was to me. This very thought demands a shout-out to another rare gift of grace, Aunt Dot, who was ever fierce for Maggie. I loved that she insisted on our staying to watch the Fourth Wiseman with her on the night Maggie and I went down to string the lights up on the porch and get the Christmas decorations up for her, or what actually proved to be our last visit, our last time with her at that magical place where I was raised. On the Friday after the Christmas of '95, no one was able to reach her and worry was in the air. I was off that Christmas week, so I decided to ride down and finally found her walking on Main Street, realizing that she had a high fever and appeared a bit disoriented. I talked to her about going to Hackensack Hospital rather than home, which she was okay with, but little did I realize then that she would never get home again, and that this was to be her last ride, her last journey. and yet sure of what we did in the moment as she only grew sicker in a crowded ER. Watching her grow worse and increasingly worried, I called a close friend, Tony Scardino, who was then the hospital's chairman of the board. He promised to get right on it, but the moment I got off the phone and walked back towards Mom, there, right in front of me, was Franny McMorrow, a charge nurse there, and an old friend of mine from childhood. She immediately got the ball rolling and helped bring Mom some measure of comfort that day. On her last Saturday, just a week later, it was Little Christmas, when the all and so very best of her universe casually kept ushering in family and friends galore, everybody, as if the Lord above had arranged just one last party here before the greater one to come in the heavens. We were glad that the great faith that she had in us the morning after the emergency surgery failed was rewarded. Indeed, the great snow that resulted in the governor ordering all cars, save emergency vehicles, off the roads, had the nurses assuring Mom that no visitors could possibly get there that day, to which she kept retorting, insisting, "Well, you don't know my children. They'll be here." Truth is, that snow left all 7 of us unable to get to our own homes the night before, and led us to take refuge at Mom's but a mile away. So when we arrived the next morning en masse, she pridefully bellowed out, I told you, not my children, they always come." That the relentless snows that week kept us all so very close was truly another gift of grace, as she would take her leave of the earth and us in just 3 short days. We remain a family that celebrates each other, but still, no matter the years, I never quite entirely run out of memories, moments, notions for which to yet apologize to Mom and Dad for. Now, I'm not a bad sort, but it does keep humbling me, reminding me to strive to be better still. The gifts she gave, the faith she kept, long on life's downward slope, they still teach me and make me want to finally have that one absolutely perfect day, the one I've been promising the good Lord for a long, long time. That's a wrap for today, my friends. Thanks so much, as always, for being with, and hope to see you back the next time. Smile on your brothers and sisters out there. Take care.